Okay, we are at the machine. I have done the homework that I showed you in the last video. I have cut all of my fabric strips. I have fused the back of them with fusible, either Palon 860 or SF 101 to help support the cotton when we make the stitches. I have cut all of my batting and I have them in the different size piles. So that's right next to the machine and ready to go. And I've put a bobbin with white thread down below. And because I've chosen to use this spooky Haunted Mansion inspired fabric here for my borders, I put a black thread up on the top on my machine because I want the first several stitches to blend in with the fabric, where we do the placement lines, we tack down the batting, all the way up to where we tack down the fabric. I want to use with a matching thread. Then I'll switch my thread out and I'll put my quilting thread, color of choice, in here to do the quilting. So put a matching thread to your fabric in the top of your machine. Then let's go to the screen cam and load the design. Okay, so I have a Baby Lock Destiny machine, which is identical to the Brother Dream machine. If you have something similar, you can follow along. I'm going to go to embroidery. My hoop just moved, that's fine. I'm going to go to my flash drive because I keep all my files on the flash drive, and I'm going to go to Pumpkins and Potions. I'm going to go to the quilting designs. It's thinking. There we go, it's moving. Quilting designs, and I'm going to go to the border. Okay, as I showed you in the last video, we're going to be using the 2-inch wide design files, and there's 4 of them, a 7, a 10, a 12, and a 14. Now I'm going to start today's video with the long side borders because I decided I'm going to make those first because those will take the longest. So for my first 3 hoopings, I'm going to be choosing 14-inch long design files. And if you have any questions about which design files to use for this, please check out my last video, which is going to be part 1 of the outside borders for Pumpkins and Potions, because I show you the math and how I come up with the calculations necessary to figure out which design files and how many of each that I need to make in order to get a strip long enough to go on the quilt. Alright, so in this case I'm going to do a 14-inch design. Everything looks good. It's going to fit in my 9.5-inch by 14-inch hoop. I'm going to click set, and it's a full fit, which means it's going to be very close to 14 inches here. But I'm going to grab it and I'm going to move it over to the left, right about there. And it's still fitting in my hoop because I'm right at the 14-inch. Now if I had gone too high, it won't fit. So I need to come back down and space it so it's fitting and showing below the top line and above the bottom line. Okay, so I'm going to click add. I'm going to go back to my flash drive, back to Pumpkins and my quilting designs, and I'm going to load another 14-inch design here. 2-inch by 14. That looks good. Let's click set. Now I'm going to bring it over, slide it directly to the right, giving it plenty of room in between. We could hoop 3 of these across and do the top or the bottom stripe and choose that size and put it over here, but I need 4 strips. So I'm still going to have to do another hooping anyway. So to make this a lot easier and less stressful for you and me, I'm just going to do the 2 long strips for the left side and the right side together, and then we're going to hoop and do the top and the bottom strips together. That way it's not going to be as confusing as to what size do we use for what. Right now we're working on the side, the long side borders, left and right. So I'm just going to use those 2 strips. Okay, I can see here I'm 14.02 inches. So I'm a little high on this one. So I want to bring it down just a little bit. There we go. So now I'm right at 14 inches, which is my hoop. So if you saw that one there, see I'm way too high now. I'm over my 14 inches. Just grab it and move it back down until you're at or below the 14. You're probably going to have to be right at 14 because there's no room left over on the bottom to move. So then we should be good. We'll click embroidery, and the machine loves it. If it was too high, say you were 14.1, the machine would go, or sorry, switch to a bigger hoop. Well, I don't have a bigger hoop. That would tell me that I need to go return, and I need to move one of these up and down so it fits within that 14 inch. Click embroidery, and if it likes it, you won't get any error message. All right. The last thing I want to do on the screen is I want to click edit, and I want to rearrange how it's going to stitch out these steps. So I'm going to click on this little button that has the 3 spools. That goes dark, and I click edit again. And now you can see it's rearranged it. So it's going to stitch the placement line for the batting for this one, and then that one. Then it's going to tack down the batting for this one and that one, etc. So you're doing the same stitch, same step for both of the strips at the same time. The only thing you have to be mindful of is you have to stop the machine in between because it will automatically jump from one to another. So when we have to place the, say we place the batting on here, we tack it down, then we have to stop the machine before it starts, put the batting down, and then start the machine up to tack it down. All right? So I will walk you through all of that as we do the stitch out. Okay, so let's go back to the hoop cam. Okay, so with the color thread that you need up on top to match your fabric, and then white thread down below, let's put the foot down and let's stitch out the first step, which is the placement line for the batting. Now it's not going to stop in between the two, but I can go ahead and let it stitch both sides. Here we go. Okay, so now I've grabbed one of my pieces of batting that measures 14 inches. And it'll be a little bit tight of a fit, but I can make it work. I want to make sure that I have covered that placement line in its entirety. There we go. And I can put the foot down and use my stylus. And let's go ahead and tack down this batting. Here we go. Okay, stop your machine. Okay, put the foot up so it doesn't stitch on you. And I stand corrected, these strips measured 14.5 inches. Okay, so we're good. I could make sure I've covered that placement line. I could put the foot down, and now we can tack down the second piece of batting. Here we go. Alright, so now I want you to take the hoop off the machine, take this over to a table, and I want you to trim away all of the excess batting from around that stitch line, and do that for both of the strips, and then I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so that's trimmed up nicely. Now we can put the foot down on the machine and stitch out the placement line for the fabric. Here we go. You don't have to stop the machine in between either. Just let it stitch both placement lines out. So now I have picked up one of my long strips. This is the one that measures 59 inches. Actually, no, correction. This is the one that measures like 65 inches long. If you refer to my math in part 1 of this video series on the borders. So now I have a decision to make because I have directional fabric, or at least it's sort of directional. It still will look good in either direction. Let's see. So I've got it going this way, or I can have it going that way. And I think I want it going that way because it looks like it's almost the clock from Beauty and the Beast with his head and his arms and his legs. So I think that's the way I want the fabric to go. So because of that, if this is my directional fabric, this is up. The design is going to stitch with the bottles facing up on this side. So technically then the top of my strip is over here and the bottom of my strip is over there. So I'm going to get the fabric, this is up, and I want to turn it this way. Again, the top of the potion bottles are going to stitch here, and this will be the bottom of the potion bottles. So I want to go ahead and lay my fabric down, and I've built in a cushion on top of about 2.5 inches. So let's get all this other fabric up here for a second. And this is a big hoop, so you have to kind of maneuver. But that looks like it's a good cushion, about 2.5 inches. All right, so then I want to make sure that I cover the placement line and try to balance it. Okay, so I can come up here and say, yeah, I've got too much fabric on the left, so I'm going to move it over to the right, just so I'm kind of balancing the amount of fabric that I have on the left and the right. Okay, come up here, feel for the batting. Again, I want to leave at least 2 inches there so I have some wiggle room. And make sure I've got all of that lined up nicely, and I think I do. Then also feel for the batting. Okay, once you got it where you want it, feel for the edge of the batting and look to see how much fabric you have on each side, and I think that's good. So I'm going to put the foot down, and I'm going to tack down this fabric. I'm still using black thread, which is what matches my fabric, and you do the same. Use a color thread up on top that matches your fabric, and we're going to stop the machine before it gets to the second one, all right? Here we go. Stop your machine. Okay, if you notice, I was using my stylus kind of like this behind the needle as it was stitching this way. All I was doing was just pressing down ever so gently to keep the fabric flat. Because if you don't, as it goes up, it could loosen up and then you would have a gather in the middle here. So I just do like this as it's going behind. The other option is you could tape your fabric down, but I use a lot of tape if I do that. So I find if I just do this, that it helps hold that fabric in place. Okay, now I'm going to roll this up like I did in my other video series, just with a very gentle roll, so I could roll it up at the end of the hoop here and keep all this off the floor and or from getting tangled as we stitch this out. Again, I'm just doing like a roll, very gentle, so I don't have to crease anything. And I'm going to put this at the end of the hoop. Okay, so now I'm going to get the next piece of fabric. And this is another long piece, which measures approximately 65 inches because I did the inner borders. Okay, and directional. I got to make sure that I have it the same direction, so it looks like the clock guy from Beauty and the Beast. All right, I like that, because then this is going to be my top of the design of the potion bottles, and this will be the bottom. I'm going to put the foot up so I can maneuver underneath. Again, I want to center it, leaving about 2 to 2.5 inches at the top. And I can come down here and kind of roll it up and see, do I have about the same equal amount on both sides? Yeah, I do. Okay, I can bring it down. And then I'm going to feel for the batting. Yep, that's pretty balanced. Feel for the batting. Okay, I'm happy with that. I can put the rest of this over here for right now. And I'm going to tack this down. Okay, you ready? Foot down. And let's tack down this strip. Ooh, this is getting exciting. So I'm just going to quickly roll this one up as well, just to keep the excess fabric out of the way. All right, so I have thought long and hard about what color thread I wanted to use on this project. And I've seen a lot of samples out there, people that have done the orange, which is cool. Some people have done the gray, that's cool too. And what I did was I pulled out my project and I looked at it and I said, okay, I have oranges, I have purples, lavender, dark, medium purple. I have turquoise, I have black, and I have white, because I'm trying to do this like a Haunted Mansion themed inspired quilt. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, one of my favorite colors is pink, and then purple, and then turquoise. Well, obviously I can't use pink, but I thought, oh, I really think I want to use a purple. So I took out a bunch of threads in all the colors of the quilt, and I puddled the thread on the fabric. And what I mean by puddling is you just take a bunch of the thread and you lay it down on the fabric to see how it's going to look as it stitches out. And I liked the orange. I looked at peach for a lighter orange. Wasn't too crazy about that. It looked okay. Turquoise, no, didn't work. And then I came across the purples. And I'm like, a dark purple isn't going to show. What if I did a lavender? And oh my goodness, I think I found my combination for this quilting. The lavender is going to show up on this fabric, but only a little bit. So you can look from far away and you're going to see the damask print of the fabric. But then you're going to come up close and you're going to see, I'm hoping, a really cool lavender, which then will tie into the lavenders and the purples that are in the quilt. And I fell in love with this. I'm like, I'm really hoping this is going to come out the way I'm envisioning it. But I really think this lavender is going to give a very subtle quilt look. It's not going to overpower the borders. It's not going to overpower the rest of the quilt. It's going to blend in with the theme of the quilt. But it's going to be a subtle enough quilt that you're going to see the design, but then you walk back and you're going to see the fabric too. You really have to puddle and test your threads if you have a busy fabric like I do. I cannot wait to see how this starts to come out. So figure out which color thread you want to quilt with, and then put that thread in the top of your machine. Okay, so I'm hoping for a subtle quilting job, but that you can still see, but that will accent and enhance the fabric print. Are we ready? All right, this is a 10-minute in real life stitch out for each side. So 20 minutes total in real life. I don't have to stop it when it starts the second one because it's not going to snag on anything. I can just let it continue. So it's going to stitch this one first, then come over and stitch that one. We ready? Okay, let's do this. Foot down and let's see what happens. Here we go. Isn't this amazing? I am in love with how this turned out. Way better than I had imagined it. Look at that. That is so cool and will fit right in with my Haunted Mansion theme for the fabric. So cool. And now while I sit here and admire how beautiful this is, I hope you're doing the same with yours. I hope that you love the way that it came out. That's so cool. Okay, so now take your hoop off the machine, take it over to the table, and I want you to take the stabilizer out of the hoop because we're done with this step, and I want you to trim away the excess stabilizer only. Do not cut any fabric, okay? Do not cut the fabric, do not cut your tails, leave all that there. You just want to trim away the excess of the stabilizer so that you're going to have strips, and then we're going to reload our hoop with another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer, and we're going to continue stitching this long strip. So only trim the excess stabilizer, and I'll meet you right back here. All right, so look at these. This is what you should have now, is 2 strips with the excess stabilizer cut away from the sides. Isn't that cool? Look at that. Okay, so go ahead and reload your hoop with another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer. It's going to be the same size, so I'm going to use my 9.5 by 14 inch hoop again. And let's go to the screen cam. And we don't have to reload the designs at all because they're ready to go. It says finish embroidering. I'm going to click OK. My carriage is going to move. That's fine. And it immediately went back to the very first step. They're in place and the color order is exactly where we need to go. So we don't have to touch the screen anymore. We're ready to stitch. Let me go get my hoop and we'll do the next section on these borders. This is cool. Okay, so I have a new piece of the poly no-show mesh in my hoop, and I've swapped out my thread. I have put black thread back on the top of the machine because I want it to match my fabric, all right? So we're going to stitch all these first stitches out using that color thread that matches your fabric, all right? Here we go. Foot down, and let's stitch out the placement line for the batting. Okay, now we're going to lay down a piece of batting on the left side here because that's the one that's going to stitch first. And I'm going to lay this down, making sure it covers all of that placement line. There we go. And we're ready to tack this down. Now, after it tacks this down, you need to stop your machine as it travels over here before it starts this next one so we can lay down the batting, all right? Okay, foot down. Move it up just a smidgy. There we go. Let's tack down this batting. Okay, I stopped the machine. Now I'm going to put the foot up so it doesn't accidentally stitch on me by hitting the go button. Alright, so let's put the foot down. After you've placed that batting down, making sure it covers all of that placement line, and let's tack down this batting. Alright, so now I need you to take the hoop off the machine, take this over to a table, and I need you to trim away all of the excess batting from around the outside I'll follow those stitch lines and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so we have these trimmed up nicely. Now I'm going to put the foot down and we're going to stitch out the placement line for the fabric. And I got a loop, so I want to get the loop, out without unthreading the needle. There we go. So now we're ready to go. So let's stitch out the placement line for the fabric. Okay, so now I want you to take the hoop off the machine. There we go. And take it over to a table to do this step. I'm going to do it right here because I need to show you what we're going to be doing. But on a table, it's much easier to do this, okay? So we're going to take our amazing border that we've stitched in the last section. This is a long one, and I'm going to drape all the remainder of the tail here up and over, making it fold over at the end. Okay, so this is where the stitch out is. This is the unstitched fabric, and I'm folding it over so I can actually feel the end of the batting. Okay, so now I'm going to put this aside for just a second, and I'm going to take a piece of the embroidery tape, which I have the pink embroidery tape, and I rolled it inside out so the outside is sticky, and I'm going to put that down on top on the stabilizer just above the edge of the batting by like, a quarter of an inch, half an inch. Doesn't really matter as long as it's going to be there to help hold this down. Now I'm going to angle this at first so I can line it up. I want to make sure that I have about the equal distance of fabric on each side of that. And then with the batting right on the edge, I'm going to place it down on that tape. So the batting is flush up against this new piece of batting. Okay. Then I'm going to drape the unstitched fabric, down. Okay. Put the tail over there. Now what I want to try to focus on is this stitch line right here. The outer stitch line. Okay, I can see it. If I fold back the fabric, I can see that placement line from the previous block. Okay, I'm going to write this down so you can see it there. And you can see I'm about 1/8 of an inch off. So I want to move this about 1/8 of an inch toward me so I can line up the previous placement line with the new placement line. So I can put it up, undo my tape, move it over, which is a little challenge here because I still want to line it up with the old batting. Okay, so I've lined it up. So my old placement line from the previous stitch out is in as close of alignment as I can get to the new placement line. Okay, and my batting is lined up flush up against the new batting. Okay, so I'm going to hold it down with my finger and I'm going to drape the new fabric and double check, yeah, my alignment's good. The reason I try to align the old placement line with the new is I want to try to get this border as straight as I can in alignment with where the previous stitch out is. All right. So that way it will not be out of whack. It'll be straight. and it will line up with the old design. Okay, so now I want you to take some embroidery tape, either the Kimberbell paper tape or this pink tape, whichever embroidery tape that you happen to have on hand, and I want you to tape that top section down. Okay, and then also feel where the connection is. You should have a smooth feel. If you feel a ridge or a ditch in between, then your batting is not flush up against that new piece of batting. Okay, so now I'm just going to pull up the fabric and make sure that I still have a good amount on each side, because you want this as straight as you can get it all the way down. Okay, and then just double check. Doesn't have to be perfect. I have a little bit more fabric on this side than I do on the top. It'll still tack it down, but I know I'm still straight with the other block. And that's the most important thing. Okay, we have that. Then you can just go ahead and tape the sides down here so that they don't move. And I'm good with the bottom. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for this side. Get your long border strip, drape the unstitched fabric up here and fold it at the end so you can feel the end of the batting. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this up here and put another piece of that double-sided sticky tape up at the top. And then I'm going to angle it, and I can actually see the previous placement line over here on this side. So I'm going to use that to angle it up, make sure my batting is flush, and then put it down. Hold it down with my finger on the tape and bring all of the unstitched fabric forward. And I can double check. My placement line looks good with the old. Yeah, looks good. And I'm flush up against that batting. Okay. Take a couple more pieces of embroidery tape. And you know what to do. We're going to tape this down on top. Okay. Then I'm going to lay the fabric down that's not stitched. I'm going to come up here, make sure I got a good amount of fabric on both sides. So I'm happy with that. And I'm going to tape that down. Okay, so I'm looking at that. That looks good all the way down. Okay, so now I'm going to put the hoop back on the machine. Okay, and there I go. I put my hoop over to one side just so I could show you that and have a little bit more room to maneuver. I'm going to click all right. Okay, so now, are you ready for this? We are going to stitch the tack down stitches for both of these strips. You can stop it if you want over here just to make sure you have everything lined up, and then continue stitching the second one. I still have black thread that matches my fabric up above. All right, here we go. Foot down. Let's tack these down. Okay, now we're to the fun part. We're going to switch the thread in the top of the machine to the color of thread that you used in your quilting up above. So in my case, this is where the lavender thread comes in. Switch your thread out, and then we'll get ready to start quilting. Okay, so I've got my lavender thread up on top. I took the tape off the strip areas down here. I'm going to leave those up there for right now until we're all done. And now we're going to start quilting. So this is a 10-minute on each side real-time stitch out. So 20 minutes total. I don't need to stop it in between because everything's tacked down. I can just go from one strip to the other. Are we ready? All right, here we go. Enjoy. Isn't that cool? Okay, and I love how it pretty much lined up. Remember how I was telling you to line up the new placement line with the old placement line that you could see on the back side of this strip? By doing so, when it's stitched out the bookshelf lines, it's pretty well lined up with the previous. So it looks like one continuous line. Love that. Okay, so now I want you to take the hoop off the machine, take it over to your table, and take the stabilizer out of the hoop. Now I want you to trim away the excess stabilizer. Don't trim any of the fabric. Leave all the fabric intact. Just trim away that excess stabilizer on both sides so we can get ready to do the next section. Then I want you to take your hoop and put another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer in it, and meet me right back here and we'll work on the next section. Okay, we're back. I have another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer in my hoop, and now we have this amazing strip that has 2 hoopings worth of quilting on it. Isn't that cool? All right, so now let's go to the screen cam. And the cool thing is, I went ahead and clicked OK, and the machine went right back to the start again. So you don't have to do anything to it. It's ready to start stitching again with the placement line of the batting, because we're doing another hooping of these 14-inch long designs. So that's cool. We don't have to do anything. Okay, I switched my thread. I took out my lavender thread and I put my black thread back in, which is going to match my fabric. So load your machine with a thread that will match your fabric. Okay, and we have the hoop on the machine, so we can put the foot down, and let's stitch out the placement line for the batting. You've got this. Okay, so now I'm going to lay this batting down, making sure it covers all sides of that placement line. Put the foot down and let's tack down this batting. Okay, stop your machine. All right, I'm going to put the foot up, and then I'm going to put this piece of batting down. Make sure I've got everything covered. Foot down, and now we can tack the second piece of batting down. Okay, so now I want you to take the hoop off the machine and take it over to a table. And I want you to trim away the excess batting from around all four sides of those placement lines. And I'll meet you right back here. Okay, now that we have that trimmed up nicely, now we're going to put the foot down and we're going to stitch out the placement line for the fabric. All right, so now we're going to take this amazing strip that we have done 2 hoopings on, and right here where it ends, I'm going to flip the unstitched fabric up and over so that I can feel the batting right here. This is where this one ends. Okay, I'm going to take the hoop off the machine so I can get to it a little bit better. I'm going to put one of those sticky pieces of tape. I'll go ahead and do the other side too. All right. So now, just like we did last time, I'm going to line this up, and I can also see the previous placement line right there. So I want to line that line up. If I can fold it back here and show you. I'm going to line that line up with this placement line right here. And I can do it with the other side as well. This one's a little bit easier for me to see. Keep it folded. Line that placement line up. Take a peek at the other one. That looks good. And then make sure my batting is nestled right up against the new batting with the old batting. Okay, and I've got that placement line looking pretty good. That's where I want it to be. Hold it down with my finger and bring the unstitched fabric along the way and put the stitched fabric back over the edge. Now I'm going to take some embroidery tape and tape that in place. So with those 3 pieces of tape, that's not going to move. Okay. Now I'm going to line up and make sure my fabric is straight all the way down. The best way to do that is to fold it up and say, do I have kind of equal amounts of fabric on both sides. This I do not. So I'm going to bring it over just a little bit. And then I can also visually look at it and see, is that straight? Come up here. Yeah, now I've got a little bit more equal on each side. So bring that down and then put 2 pieces of tape to tape that in place. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing for the right side. These borders are a lot of work, but look at what you get when they're done. That's amazing. Really is amazing. So it's worth all the hard work and love that you put into this to get these amazing borders. Okay, same thing. Put it along the back. And now I'm going to line up, pardon my arm here, I'm going to line up the old placement line with the new. Okay, you can see that pretty well there. Then I can peel it back and check it. Yep, that looks good. Okay, hold it down so it doesn't move. Get everything out of your way and tape that down so it cannot move. Okay, then again I can line this up, make it straight, flip it over and see, is it fairly balanced? Yeah, it's fairly balanced. It's off just a little bit, but the main thing is to keep the strip straight because you don't want the design to wobble off in one direction. You know what I mean? All right. You want it to be as straight as you possibly could get it. All right, how does that look? That looks good. Okay, so now I can put the hoop back on the machine. Okay, so now we still have black thread up on top. We're going to tack down these 2 pieces of fabric. Ready? Here we go. Okay, so now you can switch your thread out, take out the threading topping machine and put in the thread that you are going to do the quilting in. Okay, you got this. So I'm just going to take the tape off. And now we're going to do the quilting. Each side is about a 10-minute in real life stitch out. All right, you're getting good at this. All right, let's go ahead and do the quilting. right, that's another amazing stitch out. Love that. Okay, so now I want you to take the hoop off the machine, take this over to a table, and I want you to take the tape off, and then I want you to trim away the excess stabilizer only from around these strips. Don't cut any of the fabric. Just trim away the excess stabilizer from the sides and top of the bottom, and I'll meet you right back here.